So I'm going to go back in history a little bit. Prior to 2010, for a number of years, there were kind of sole operators that had their own call centers, and they had information either stolen or leaked, or they bought these databases from hotels that had timeshares in the city of Puerto Vallarta. It became an extraordinary business, but everyone kind of on their own and stuff. And they had these call centers, and they were scamming individuals in the United States who owned timeshares in Puerto Vallarta. In 2010, there was one particular individual who had a call center. Um, and this is according to information provided to me by the U.S. government. And he was within the Jalisco cartel, and he said he came to someone within a position of power in the Jalisco cartel and said, "You guys, we can make you can make so much money on this scam." And they bought the idea and basically went around to all these call centers and either threatened the people working at those call centers that they would have to work for them, or just simply took them out and took over the call centers. And what the Jalisco cartel did with the teaching of, being taught by this individual who had brought them the idea in the first place, was like train individuals to scam Americans, primarily senior citizens in the United States. And they brought in people who have, and I've listened to audio of these people who speak almost perfect English.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and they have them set up a network of shell companies and essentially LLCs through which they say, we are this business, you can look us up, we have this, they have this sleek website, you can see here that we are this, we're a real estate broker. And what they tell the people on the phone, the people they're trying to scam, often people over 60, for the reasons that you mentioned, they consider them a more vulnerable and more lucrative option. They say, look, you have a timeshare. I see you have a timeshare here in Puerto Vallarta. I see that you paid $50,000 for it. Um, and I'm a real estate broker, and I have someone who would love to buy it from you for $75,000. And that sounds amazing because it's really difficult to get rid of your timeshare once you've bought it, right? So this is something, it's like what you want to hear.
Yeah,
So
you're getting back
immediate
your
sale,
initial investment plus some profit, and you probably have used it to a fraction of the degree you thought you were going to when you signed up for it.
always.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And so this all sounds fantastic. And plus, they have this really great website that shows what they do and who they are. And in fact, they have very, very um, they have very good legal documents that they send them. They say, look, here's the legal document, here's the agreement, here's the contract, all of it, everything signed. It just, everything is in order. It looks in order. I mean, some of these people I've spoke to who were scammed even brought them to their accountants and said, does this look okay? And they're like, yeah, it looks legit. Let's go for it. Wow, congratulations.
So a
And so
high
they're
level of sophistication.
super sophisticated
Yeah.
and ever more sophisticated, right? So again, these people aren't stupid. I mean, this is like extraordinary, the levels, the layers of fraud um, that they engage in. And so they say, and the person they say, look, $75,000, right? But first, it's this whole thing in Mexico. There's this federal tax that you have to pay before you're in the United States. There's this like cross-border tax. It's like a whole like equivalent IRS kind of tax that's required. It's a specific law. I can send you the article within the tax law that shows all of this and stuff. And they're like, oh yeah, sure. And they're like, it's going to be about $3,000. And here's this document that shows this law. This is from the tax agency. I have it now because of course you signed this contract. So please just send $3,000 and we'll send you your $75,000. And in fact, once it's all said and done, and once the owner that wants to buy this has actually bought property, you will be refunded everything that that you owe. So that's how it begins with these smaller numbers. And they over time, it's like they're like, well, look, there's this new thing, there's this new tax, and then they're like, oh, we just sent the check via FedEx. Like, and if you think about it, right, a check in Mexico is probably not going to be cashable in the United States, but still, we send a
Yeah.
check, and it's held up at the border because it's more than $10,000, which you can't bring more than $10,000 in cash in the United States. So there's just this fee to allow them, and they go on, and it's like a drip scam, drip defrauding of American senior citizens. And in my story for USA Today, um, I write about a man that I met who, over a period of 12 years, and more specifically, spent the most in the last 3 years, he was defrauded of $1.8 million of his money.
And was this through that same type of drip scam? Which
Oh, absolutely.
and here's the thing I want to point out to people. They might be listening to this and say, "Who would ever fall for this? How could you ever fall for this?" There are hundreds of millions of dollars that have been stolen this way, probably annually, I would imagine, to the cartels. So the answer is probably somebody that you know, probably somebody who doesn't have the acumen that you have or the ability to research things or the network that you may have, hence targeting senior citizens. So people fall for this all the time. But I mean, I have to ask the question, how do you lose $1.8 million over a drip scam?
Well, as it turns out, this individual I'm talking about, I'm able to use his first name, Stephen. He is a financial manager.
Oh
He's
boy.
not just anyone. So you know what? He kept an incredible record from the day this began until the last payment that he made, which was which was December of last year. And he has a record of every transaction that he ever made in a spreadsheet that I was able to review that showed all the banks and information of the bank. So what happened with him was it started out to be one thing, and here's where this cartel is even more sophisticated. Once he caught on to this scam, he was like, "Oh, you guys are scamming me." They just dropped off for a few months. And then someone called him and said, "Hey, we're from the Victims Defense Institute of Mexico, which is a legitimate organization. We just raided a call center and got found your information and saw that you've been defrauded of an enormous amount of money. And we have a lawyer who is prepared to bring your case to the Supreme Court. But not only that, we other people, other your name has been used to defraud other individuals. So you are due all the money that those other individuals that your name was used to defraud. And it's to the amount it ended up being of $6 million. But here's the thing: we're just going to need some fees because there's these fees for the Attorney General's office. There's a fee for the Unit of Financial Investigations. Again, totally exists. There's all these documents, and his case goes to the Supreme Court for at least 2 years. It's in the Supreme Court, during which he's like paying lawyers and paying all these fees because now, you know, way back when he was owed, he was going to get paid like $75,000. Now he's about to recover all of the hundreds of $1,000s he had already spent and make $6 million. Oh, is that meaning, get
Yeah.
$6 million? That's how they pivot when they identify that you realize you've been scammed, right?
With
And it,
another
it was,
scam.
yeah. And he kept record. He spoke to more than 150 different individuals, many of them who purportedly were from the Mexican government over a period of 12 years. Um, and he built close, deep relationships with some of them. They knew intimate details about his life. What he didn't know is that it was a Jalisco cartel scamming him of, again, more than a million, almost $2 million. And this organization is now expanding. So they started out in Puerto Vallarta, and had some call centers in the city of Guadalajara. But they now have more, and this is from the US government, they now have more than 2 dozen call centers um, across the country. And they're going into Cancun and taking over the timeshare market in Cancun. And the US government told me They are now making so much money, to your point. It's hundreds of millions a year, and that's a super conservative number. But they're now
Yeah.
making so much money that the return on investment is greater than drug trafficking itself for the Jalisco cartel, one of the premier drug trafficking cartels in the world. Scamming senior citizens in the United States is now more lucrative than drug trafficking itself.